Hello, and welcome to the Friday Night Author Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Baker, and during the next half hour, we'll be speaking with several very talented authors about their newly released books, what their inspiration was for creating their unique stories, and why it would be a great book to read and share with your friends and family. I love stories with interesting character development, and this next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable has that. 2 interesting characters and 3 tales about them. Really excited to find out more about it. The book is called Capriccio 1, 2, 3 by author Antonia Frank from Fulton Books. Antonia, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now tell everybody a little bit about this book.
The book is based on a premise of music, of development of a theme, and redone repeatedly with slight variations, and to see what conclusions they draw. So these 2 characters who have no names, one is a famous violinist who entrances people with his music, and the other is a woman who falls in love with him in different scenarios, in different cities. In one variation, she is full of typical female hang-ups, what is her figure like, and her age, and her hair, and her this, and her that. She's not good enough. The second, she's strong, and she's self-assured, and how does she develop that relationship with the same person? And the third is a combination of the other 2. It's a fairy tale. It's 3 fairy tales. I love fairy tales. I'm addicted to fairy tales. And what I wrote are grown-up fairy tales.
Now, this is a fascinating concept for a book and these stories. Where did that all kind of come from? What inspired this?
Well, first of all, my love of music. I had a friend a few years ago die of cancer, and it threw me into a depression. And the only way that I got out of this depression was listening to this wonderful classical music by this very renowned violinist. And I realized how much it brought me into a different mindset, a different world, so much so that I went all over Europe following his concerts. He has that ability, and I realized music has that ability to bring you out. And the book is based on music.
How was it working with Fulton Books to get this published and to be able to share this story?
They were very supportive. I had no idea how much work I had to do in editing, a book cover, description of the author and all that. It took me longer to do all that work for publishing than it did to write the book. I would hope that the next one, which I've already started, is going to give me more of the creative edge, which is what I'm looking for, and less of the mechanical business-like edge.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if you're working on anything new or you have anything new coming out?
Yes, I started it almost immediately because there was more to write about, but it didn't fit with, these first 2 characters. So, yes.
When people read this book, Capriccio 1, 2, 3, is there a message you hope comes across from this book and these stories?
I think the primary message was that women are too hard on themselves and too critical. And it really doesn't matter, because when this love really happens, or in my imagination when it really happens, it doesn't look critically at the other person. There's an old movie that I watched on Turner Classic, and it's called The Magic Cottage. And it's about 2 people. She's very, very plain and very homely, and he actually has a scar face. But when they're in this cottage together, they see each other as 2 incredibly beautiful people. And you don't realize reality till someone else walks into the cottage and says, well, no, where are they seeing this? So if there is a love of another human being, I think that love should be so all-encompassing that it could never be critical. And that would be the message.
Well, I think that's a fantastic message that women and men alike all need to hear that message. And I think they're going to find that and so much more. The book is called Capriccio 1, 2, 3 by author Antonia Frank from Fulton Books. You can get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Google Play, online, as well as at the brick and mortar stores. And Antonia, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so very much, Chris. It was a pleasure.
Have you ever wondered as a child or even as an adult, is Jesus stronger than nails? Well, this next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable answers that very question. The book is called Is Jesus Stronger Than Nails by author Priscilla Kirk from Christian Faith Publishing. Priscilla, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris.
Now tell everybody a little bit about this story.
The story was actually inspired by my 3-year-old son, and he was just I actually did step on a nail, and he just didn't understand if Jesus is strong and can do anything, why was the nail stronger than him, or was it stronger than him? And if it wasn't, why did he die? And so this book answers that question.
Now, how was it as an author to be able to take something personal from your life and with your son, and to be able to turn this into a story and into a book that could help others? How was that?
It was actually pretty cool. Initially, I would just tell friends and family about the question that he asked, but every single one of them wanted to know what my answer was. And so I thought, well, if they're wanting to know what I said, maybe other people might be asked this question and would want to know how to answer it. So I just kind of felt led to start writing books to hard questions.
If you're looking at a target age range, what kind of age range is this book geared towards, and could it be beneficial even to adults reading it to them with kids?
The age range that we listed it for when we published it was 2 to 5 years. But what I love about the book is it is the answer to a very basic yet important question. It allows you to understand what sin is and why Jesus had to die. And then at the end of the book, it even gives the prayer of salvation. So if you have an unbeliever reading the story to a kid, a nanny, a cousin, or someone listening to the story, or a parent or grandparent, they get a lot of information. Maybe they understand in the simplest words what Jesus' sacrifice meant and what it allows us to do because of it.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to see this book come to life on the page and to be able to share it?
It was great. They really worked with me. Due to Lyme disease, I have really good days, bad months. And so they encouraged me, but didn't push real hard. And they were always understanding whenever they would send, edits, and it would take me 6 months to make a few edits just because I couldn't during the 6 months. And so that was great. And the encouragement was also great. They cared more about me and what I was going through than the finished work at that time.
Now, have you thought about doing this again? Maybe another children's book or another book? Are you working on anything new?
I have actually already written a book that they agreed to publish. We haven't started editing or illustrating or anything, but they do have it.
Oh, excellent. Well, we look forward to more down the road. Now, this book is Jesus Stronger Than Nails. When, of course, kids read this, and even adults, as we said, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles reading it to and with kids, what's the most important message that you hope comes across from this story?
It's that Jesus loved us so much that he chose to die for us. He didn't have to. He is stronger than nails, and he's stronger than wood, and yet he chose because he loves us that much.
Well, that's such an important message that we all need to hear. Kids need to hear it, and we as adults, we need to hear it, and sometimes need to be reminded of it. And I think this is going to be a great vehicle for that. And I encourage everyone to pick up their copy today. The book is called Is Jesus Stronger Than Nails by author Priscilla Kirk from Christian Faith Publishing. You can get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, as well as at the brick and mortar stores. And Priscilla, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris.
An interesting book about challenges and redemption for two characters is at the heart of this next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable. The book is called Second Shift by author Dean Moore from Christian Faith Publishing. Dean, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll tell everybody a little about this story.
Well, it's about an old truck driver that thinks his better days are over and comes across a little neighbor kid whose bad days are just beginning, and God just kind of puts them together in a way that it causes redemption for both of them.
Now, what inspired this story and these characters? Where did that all kind of start?
Well, I substitute teach a lot. I used to teach high school a long time ago, and now I drive a truck, but on my day off, I substitute teach. And I was in a rather poor neighborhood near where I lived. There was a little guy that I didn't actually sub for him, but I knew him on the playground, and he was in a really bad home situation, and everybody knew it, but really nobody did anything about it. And the following school year when I came back, the teachers were talking because he passed away over the summer from neglect and abuse when there should have been a hotline call, and nobody made one. And that bugged me for a couple of months. I mean, it still bugs me, but one day when I was driving the truck, I got the idea to write this book to give him a happy ending since he didn't get one in real life.
Now, who's the type of reader that you really want to see pick this book up, or do you have like a target audience, or is this just something that really everybody will gain something from for reading this?
Well, I think everybody would gain something, but my two target audiences are one, middle school, upper elementary, high school reluctant readers that are in that kind of a home situation. I see a lot of these kids when I'm substitute teaching and out in ministry that really just don't have any hope, and they think they're the only ones living that life. is they think everyone else in school is, is living the life they see on TV and everybody's happy and everything's good, and they go home to, a living hell. And they think they're the only ones. And I've had kids read this book and just come up to me and and hug me and say, I didn't think anybody else was living this. Nobody knew. And then also adults that have no idea that, a sizable chunk of the kids out there are living this life.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to see this book published and to be able to share this?
It was really seamless. I literally wrote the book while I was driving the truck and did the editing, on my laptop, and it was, it was back and forth, but it was really easy. I've never written a book before, and I had no idea what I was doing, and they made it really easy for me.
Now, are you working on anything new, maybe a follow-up to this, or do you have anything planned for the future?
I have one or two other ideas, but I want to wait and see how this does. I gave several copies to the school librarians at 8 or 9 of the schools where I sub, and there are actually 2 librarians have nominated for what Missouri calls a Truman Award, which would get it out and get a lot of kids in that age range reading it. So I think it would help a lot of kids and be an eye-opener for some other people.
Now, this book, Second Shift, when people read it, like you said, whether kids or adults, what do you hope is the most important message that comes across to readers with this book?
That nothing's hopeless. Both of the main characters start out the story in hopeless situations where they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But, as a Christian, I serve the light at the end of the tunnel. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So I want people to, have hope.
Well, I tell you what, hope in a hopeless situation is a powerful thing, and I think people are going to find hope in this book. The book is called Second Shift by author Dean Moore from Christian Faith Publishing. You can get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, the brick-and-mortar stores, just a handful of the locations. And Dean, thank you for being on the show.
All right, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Have you ever had feelings of doubt, uncertainty, and unanswered questions about your spiritual life? This next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable is going to be a great resource to educating yourself. The book is called Go Back to School with God by author Lisa Ulmer from Christian Faith Publishing. Lisa, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Now tell everybody a little bit about this book.
Well, Chris, Go Back to School with God is a study guide with instructional tools on how to transform your thinking, actions, and life through spiritual content and practical teachings that coincide with real life circumstances and situations.
Now, what inspired you to write this book? Where did that all kind of start?
I would have to say, for me, fear. Fear inspired me to write Go Back to School with God because at that time, Chris, I was going through a transition with myself and my career. Being a teacher for nearly 2 decades, I became melancholy and deep down inside, I knew I needed to make a change. And once I began to tap into that fear, I began writing Go Back to School with God, utilizing my teaching skills and pouring God's spiritual wisdom and knowledge into a book. And I realized that I could still teach, but just in a different way.
If you're talking about a target audience, who's the reader that you really want to see get this book? Or is this kind of the book that everybody's going to learn a lot from and gain a lot from?
Absolutely. I'm glad that you said that because this book is, Chris, for everyone. Because the book is filled with practical teachings and it provides instruction on how to pray, how to stay healthy, how to tap into your purpose, and so many other topics. And we are all lifelong learners. And Go Back to School with God is definitely a fundamental read.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to get this book published and to be able to share this?
Christian Faith Publishing has been exceptional. Throughout my process as a first-time author, Chris, I could not be happier and grateful to work with a team of professionals that are patient, supportive, and creative in every way.
Now, are you working on anything new, maybe a follow-up to this down the road?
Absolutely, yes, I am. I am working on the sequel to Go Back to School, Part 2, and it's expected to be published next year.
Oh, excellent. Well, we look forward to that. Now, this book, when people read this, what do you hope is the most important message that comes across to the reader?
I would have to say the most important message is for people to learn how to build up themselves and develop a supernatural connection with God.
I think this is going to be one of those books that is going to be a great read because people are going to learn a lot from this. But I think it's going to be one of those books that people can just keep going back to and reminding them of all the things they've learned and finding new pearls of wisdom along the way. The book is called Go Back to School with God by author Lisa Ulmer from Christian Faith Publishing. You can get your copy today at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, as well as at the brick and mortar stores. And Lisa, thank you for being on the show.
And thank you so much, Chris, for having me.
If you're looking for a book of inspiration and hope and an uplifting story, I think you're going to be looking for this next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable. The book is called Burned, My Journey Through Addiction by author Jana Roe from Christian Faith Publishing. Jana, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate this opportunity.
Now tell everybody a little bit about your book.
Well, what I do is I take readers on a journey through my addiction. I had an addiction to tanning that went from the age of 10 until the age of 48. Everyone could see that I was tan, but no one realized the obsessions and the struggles that I dealt with on a daily basis. And so in my book, I'm honest and open. My goal is to help readers to learn from my mistakes. And my other goal with the book is to help others, again, just to make changes in their life and also to save some lives and to give them information.
Now, what inspired you to tell your story and put it in a book to share with everyone?
Well, my family has always been my biggest supporters, and they continue to be that. I'm also inspired by students. For the past 8 years, I've been taking my message to schools, and I talk about 3 subjects that I feel we don't talk enough about, which are addiction, tanning, and skin cancer. After the presentation is over, the students write me a letter. It's a letter or a takeaway message, and I have some of those letters in the book. And through those letters, they inspired me to keep spreading my message to others. And I knew that in order to do that, I had to write a book. And so it's been a pleasure to be able to do that. And again, just to have my voice be heard and to help others.
When you wrote this book, did you have a particular person in mind that you wanted to see this book get into the hands of? Or is this really something that I have to imagine it's probably something anyone could learn a lot from and gain a lot from?
Absolutely. I speak from, to middle school students all the way to college level students. So I would say that this book would be for teenagers all the way through adulthood. I agree with what you said. This book is for anyone and everyone.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to get this book published and to spread your message?
Christian Faith was there from the very beginning. When I first had my idea to write the book, they were there supporting me. They believed in my message and my story, and it was a pleasure to work with them. They were a great partner to have, and I can't say enough good things. I mean, they were wonderful and helpful.
Now, have you thought about maybe doing this again? Or are you working on anything new right now?
Actually, I like writing children's books also, so I have some children's books that I've written. Haven't gotten any of those published. And then I've started a second book that's a collaboration with my husband, and it's on abuse. And we're hoping to have that book done and ready for publication at the end of this year.
Oh, excellent. We look forward to that. Now this book,
Thank you.
Burned, when people read this, like you said, from teens on up, what do you hope is the most important message that comes across from your story?
The most important message to me is that you don't have to stay stuck. Whether it's an addiction or a situation that's happening in your life, that there is always a way out. I am definitely living proof of that. After I stopped tanning, I had no idea what my life would be like or how to move forward, and I felt alone. And I'm hoping that when readers, take a look and they start reading this book, that they realize that they don't have to be alone like I was. I want people to learn from my mistakes. And again, my message is always, I want to change lives and I want to, help people make better decisions than I ever did for myself. If I had to sum my book into one word, the word would be hope. And especially in these difficult times, that's something that we all need to hold on to. Yeah,
most certainly is. And of course, there's the book, and you also have a website as well that people can go to.
I do, yeah. Thank you for asking, Chris. My website is tanningaddiction.com, and they can find information. I do speaking engagements. I've got, letters from students there. I've got information on how to purchase the book. on that website.
Well, I encourage everyone to check out that website and, of course, check out this book. I think it's going to bring a lot of hope to people because addiction comes in all forms, and I think this is going to be a great book to address that. The book is called Burned, My Journey Through Addiction by author Jana Roe from Christian Faith Publishing. You can get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, as well as at the brick-and-mortar stores. And, Jana, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your time.
We all deal with stress in our daily lives, but none more so than our first responders, and dealing with that stress is very important because it can very much take a toll on a person. The next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable deals with just that. The book is called The Christian Approach, A Biblical Guide to Stress in the Fire and Emergency Services by author Corey Fabricatore from Christian Faith Publishing. Corey, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, and Lord bless you, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Well, tell everybody a little bit about this book.
As you just said in the introduction, I was one of the many people who have a fair amount of stress in their daily life as a career firefighter. I've been in the volunteer service since 2004 and career in the DOD since 2014, and I was having my own spiritual struggles with what I was dealing with in the workplace, and slowly but surely, as I spend more time in the Word, I took a different approach to it. And this book I wrote in the spirit of trying to help others, not just in the fire and emergency services, but anybody who has like a high-stress job, basically to change their outlook, which is the best way to deal with stress. And I figure, well, you can go to a psychologist and have them dig around in your past at hundreds of dollars an hour to find out something wrong that in your past they cannot change, or you can take the Christian approach to it and essentially see what God has to say and what God's Word has to say about how to deal with these different types of stress, who God, by the way, knows more about you and the intricacies of your identity than you do. So that's pretty much what inspired me to write the book.
Now, how was it to be able to take, something from your own personal life, your own personal experiences, and put this in a book and share it with others to better them? How was that?
It's very gratifying, not only personally, but I think this is a good way to get my foot in the door to take another route of actually helping people. And one of my goals here after I'm done with my bachelor's degree is going to be pursuing my master's degree in divinity from Dallas Theological Seminary. So I figured this is the first way to really get my foot in the door, and it's great to help people and counsel people, and hopefully here soon I'll be doing that not only as an author but also as a pastor as well.
When you're looking at a target audience, who's the type of person that you really want to see get their hands on this book, or is this really the kind of book that's going to be able to help just about anybody that picks it up?
Well, although this book will most indeed help any mature Christian or spiritually infant Christian, for that matter, who can pick this up and get a lesson out of it. But the specific target audience is anybody who has a more than usual stress projected on them in a career, such as corrections officers, firefighters, which I have mentioned, doctors, nurses, law enforcement, military, top executives of major corporations. Anybody can pick this up and get a very Christ-like perspective on dealing with an array of different stresses.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to get this book published and to be able to share this?
It was a blast, I'll tell you. The folks over at Christian Faith Publishing, they were a blast to work with. They made the process very easy. It was actually such a blessing to me to be able to work with them. I decided to go through them for another book in my book series that is currently being published, and another one that's going to be coming down the line here shortly.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to more in this series down the road. Now, this book, The Christian Approach, A Biblical Guide to Stress in the Fire and Emergency Services, when people read this, what do you hope is the most important message that comes across?
Well, the most important message that I hope that they can get out of this is that they're one of many countless people Christ has died for. We're all going to deal with different trials and an array of negative things throughout this life, especially in the workplace. And at the forefront, just like I call them Bible goggles, the only way you're able to see in a clouded world is to always consult God's Word, because God knows us better than we know ourselves, and he is always the best approach to dealing with anything negative in this life.
You know, in today's age, when we're going through a global pandemic, I think this is the perfect book, and I encourage everyone to pick up their copy. The book is called The Christian Approach, A Biblical Guide to Stress in the Fire and Emergency Services by author Corey Fabricatore from Christian Faith Publishing. Get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, as well as at the brick and mortar stores. And Corey, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. And to you and your audience, God bless you.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Friday Night Author Roundtable. We'll be back next week with another great group of talented authors to discuss their books, their process, and their accomplishments. Have a great weekend, everyone.